Okay. Ooh. Nice loop. Love it. Okay, so it's working there. There's not much today, apparently. So Jonas couldn't join today, and he's the one running these meetings. So I'm just gonna stick to the agenda, which is empty. So I don't know. Only question and answer. So if someone has any question or any answer, just feel free to ask now, or shut up forever.
Oh, I would say that as Maciek and I are we're working on the part on the parser, the write to TypeScript and so on, that we didn't move forward during this period because we were working on other things, right? So there is nothing new
progress
to share.
Okay. Actually, I think the progress with the parser is also interesting for Spec 3.0. If it's kind of related, right? So I don't know how's it going. You might want to just give a brief overview of how is it going.
Maybe Maciek was the one who worked lately, because I was more involved on 2.4. I don't know if you want to share something. Otherwise, I mean, I can.
Yeah, at the moment we are rewriting the models to the new one, to the intent API. We have at the moment new base model, the collection model, which exactly works on the array and the object side. This will also help us to rewrite the servers and the servers variables and the server requirements, the security requirements. And I also wrote some functions, some helpers to stringify, to validate the parse. I also integrate the spectral inside the parser. But first we need to write the rules for the parser in the parser repository. Yeah, so I also create the pull request, but we need to review and merge that, so it's not a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in generic terms, not in specific things that you did, but in generic terms, like what would you say is missing? Like an overview, right? Like an overview of what's missing.
At the moment,
for
the rest
those
of
who
the
want
models. The rest of the models. So if you want to, for example, if you see us, if you want to contribute, you can go to this issue. I will find it.
Okay.
And rewrite exactly the models from the intent API, yes? Based on the intent API, sorry. So we have the servers variables, security requirements is on the review. We have also the info object, but we need the channels and operation and messages, yeah? Because at the moment we split the definition to separate collections.
Sorry, Maciek.
Yeah.
Did you send something?
No. I'm
okay.
but yeah.
I was like, where is he sending the link?
No. Yes, I will find that and. Okay. Yes. Okay. So in the chat, I will pass in the chat.
Sure
on
forward this.
Yeah.
To the live stream.
Sure. Thank you very much. Yeah. So it's a issue with the list of the issues that we have that we try to fix on the next major version of the parser. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is like a roadmap, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. If someone want to contribute, please write in this issue in the comment and
So we're
Yeah.
probably now here, right? On the first one, migrate.
Yeah,
to TypeScript,
exactly. It's more important.
which is like
But
a
also,
huge
yeah, but
item.
together with the migration, we also implement the parser API, the second item.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And also the next integrate, but it's, you know, we want to make it together.
Okay. Sounds good. Cool. 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 So, any other things that you want to highlight? I think you have something to highlight that is happening right now, or was happening right now a few minutes ago. Just not related, but it's funny to mention, maybe.
Maybe you want.
We release 2.4 version of the spec.
Spec. Yeah. Yay. Okay, so deal is deal. If you want to participate, that's fine. So, but if you want to stay on the chat, that's also cool, as you prefer. So he's saying that he's new to Amazing KPI and joining as a contributor for the Google Summer Season of Docs program. Would love to ask, how will this meeting improve my understanding of Amazing KPI? So this meeting is actually not for understanding async KPI, but this is a meeting that we run every 2 weeks to work on the next major version of the spec. So spec is right now was released as 2.4.0 version, and we're working on the 3.0, which is going to take a while, probably until the end of the year or something like that. So yeah, that's why we're running these meetings, to coordinate efforts towards version 3 of the spec. Yeah, so Sergio is sharing more details there. I'm gonna post it on there as well. Yes. So yeah, that is what it is. So this, if you want to learn about async KPI and understand a little bit better, we run a community meeting every 2 weeks as well. And it's next week. It's happening next week on Tuesday at 4 p.m. UTC, I think. It's still not in the calendar, but yeah, we run it on Tuesdays every 2 weeks. So yeah, next one is next week on Tuesday. So yeah, this one is actually for this, for asking whatever you want about async KPI and getting a better understanding of async KPI if you want. And so I think there is nothing. There's nothing left, I think. So this one is the release. This one, yeah, this is the right one. So Jonas left a comment here that, yeah, he was waiting for 2.4 to be released, which is already done now. And so next week, he will move forward with some other stuff. I just had a chat, as you may know, with Laurent from Microx, thinking out loud, and we actually were talking about the change of the meanings of the verbs. Now send and receive, and now they mean what they do and not what you can do with the application, and blah blah blah. You know, change of perspective of publish subscribe, and we also were chatting about that maybe we should be leaving send and receive for, let's say, broker clients, if you want. But when you want to define a REST API or a client-server architecture like a WebSocket API or something like that, we could probably introduce a new verb, which is the request verb, to make it clear that this is a that this is a request, right? It is not any kind of message that is sent. So we give it more semantics, let's say. Does it make sense what I'm saying? Or
So, I mean, it makes sense totally, but because it comes from a user, real user of the spec, right? I don't see a stopper or a blocker for not adding.
well, first of all, it wasn't coming from him, so it was just a conversation that we had.
Oh,
It wasn't his proposal. And we were just discussing that maybe as an idea, right? Maybe something that we could be doing is that we add another verb to separate, right? To differentiate between sending and receiving, like generic sending and receiving, and making it more explicit that for requests, for APIs, for traditional APIs, let's say client server, we make a different verb. And then inside this operation, you can probably have a reply section or response section or something like that. I don't know.
yeah, I remember we discussed about this when we started designing the intent API. In fact, I cannot remember how can I look for the issue, but it should be somewhere. That we included different verbs, not only publish and subscribe item, but some others like I don't remember which one were more focus on HTTP
and WebSockets.
And I think yes, I think so. So those will become, I guess, completely different shape, or could have different shape than the current operation.
Yeah, and now that I'm thinking is they will even have a different point of view than send and receive. So send and receive is like what the application is doing. I'm sending a message to the broker, for instance, and request will be you can request me. The client can request me. Like the same as the request verb will be the same as like open API, let's say. And now it makes me think, then the content of the request verb can be an open API object. Not the whole document, but a part of it. Ooh, it's getting
so open API inside async API.
We're really doing that, by the way.
Yeah, but supporting directly straight on the operation. It's
without any. Well, actually, no, it cannot be like this because if it's WebSockets, it doesn't match. But something like this, something like you have request, and then inside you have the definition of the request, whatever fields for defining the request, right? Description, summary, and all this stuff. And you will want to define the payload, of course, of the body of the request. And the headers and so on, right? Which is, in other words, is the message that you're gonna send, right? And potentially also another section inside the request, inside the request operation, which is a reply or response, where you define potential responses. And there, we might be able to leverage OpenAPI in some cases, at least in the HTTP binding, right? I don't know. Maybe we're getting too far.
But next to the request, we should also have the subscribe to leverage the WebSocket, yeah? Because if we have the send and receive, so it means that the application exactly sends something or receives something. So it's from the application point of view. And then If you want to have the request, so it means that your client make something like the request. So
But
then,
for But for version 3, we're saying that the client should have its own async API document. So you don't use the one of the server. For version 3, we agreed that you should have one for the server and one for the client.
Okay.
So that's why you don't have to do this anymore.
But you need also to, yeah. Okay, I understand. Yeah, I understand.
But it's a good point, because then if I want to define a client and WebSocket client or HTTP client, and I want to say that you can do the request, you can perform a request, what do you do? Oh, fuck.
It's a receive. I don't know.
And it's a send and a receive.
But
It's
you
both.
probably will replicate, yes, some messages, some operation.
Sorry, say again.
You will replicate some messages. I mean, not the replicate, but you
Duplicate?
will, yeah,
Reuse?
duplicate. Yeah, exactly, duplicate some, operation from the perspective.
You
So
might
it will be
or might
something like
not,
the copy, but you will exactly only change the request.
The thing is that you might have something internally that you use for yourself to generate code
yeah.
and docs for yourself, and then you produce one that is for your customers, and so that your customers only, or your users, and they only see this one, the one for the client, so they don't reuse anything. They only see the one that is for them, right? So I don't know.
And sorry, I don't know if you mentioned that. So most of the bindings on HTTP could go into, because if you create that type like request, or for example, the binding should be completely revisited of HTTP, right? Because this is now built in is the word, into this new kind of operation type.
Depends on how we shape this, but we might have to revisit it, which is fine. Suvik is currently making the HTTP binding an OpenAPI object, so like exactly an OpenAPI object, which makes more sense. So we don't reinvent the wheel. And actually, it's there, it's described there, but it's described everything that you can do there, but we could probably just say on the HTTP binding, we could just say this is an OpenAPI path item object and point to OpenAPI documentation. We don't have to describe it ourselves.
Yeah, but at the moment we cannot declare the multiply methods, on the given channel.
Exactly. So with this, you will be able. So yeah, that's why. But it's kind of weird now as it is, because it's kind of weird because you should only be able to use the HTTP binding on the subscribe operation, right? Or on the publish operation. Fuck, I'm confused. On the publish operation. On the publish operation. Yeah.
Yes, publish operation.
Yeah. So I think so. So and not on the subscribe one, right? Because the subscribe will be the response, and you want to start with the request. So yeah, it's a little bit convoluted, but possible nonetheless.
But you say that some companies want to, hide some internal things, yes, on the specification. But if someone want to only expose some, the channels that people can subscribe by the WebSocket, so what's done? So they probably should create another, something like the private Essence API, the public Essence API to the subscribe, and then the client to the request. So you'll have the 3 Essence API files. 3 documentation, exactly.
Thing is that it's not just that. I mean, you can maintain 2, of course, and you probably should maintain 2. And then you can have the 2 referencing common stuff, probably, right? That's or you put it on the private one, and then the public that you're gonna share, you make it reference the private one or something like that, and then you bundle it before you share it, right? So it doesn't have any references. But you probably have to maintain 2 because, say, for instance, the description, right? If in a description you have like something saying something like, this is sending a message to the broker to create a user, whatever, right? And this is on the private side, let's say, on the implementer side. On the client side, on the consumer side, this comment doesn't make sense. Or say it in another way, for instance, operation ID is another common concern. I call my operation ID on user sign up, for instance, because I want to use this operation ID on the generated code on user sign up. On user sign up on the server side, let's say, it's fine. But on the client side, it shouldn't be on user sign up. It should be send user sign up. Right? When one is receiving, the other is sending, right? So the operation ID doesn't make sense to be reused. That's why you should be keeping two documents for the descriptions, from the summaries, for the operation ID, for all these human readable, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I
fields.
understand about this,
Yeah.
the private and public, yes.
Yeah. So you should still keep two, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm afraid about the WebSocket. Yeah? So it means that people can connect to the given server, and subscribe only the public endpoints. I mean, something like that.
That's fine.
Yeah, but in this case, if someone want to hide something, so
Yes.
in this case, should create the two separate Essence API from the application point of view. Yes, one private and then the yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we can also go in that direction to create maybe something like the extension to describe, something like the switching, that you exactly write everything from the application point of view, but then for the given, the also the operation of the channels, right?
But it also has other problems. Say, for instance, internally, I might be subscribing to the broker on a broker topic to receive a message.
Oh yeah.
But the client might not be talking to the broker directly. They might be calling an HTTP endpoint somewhere, and then this HTTP API will publish to the broker, right? So you can that's one of the problems that we have right now. We're assuming that just by changing the verb, everything works. Yeah, in some cases it does. Some cases it doesn't work. A common use case is a Kafka Confluent Kafka HTTP connector, right? Your internal application subscribes to Kafka broker to a topic, but your clients might be publishing to the HTTP connector, not to the broker. So yeah, so it's not just a matter of changing the verb. You have to change everything. Like there's a new server, it's a new protocol, it's everything is fucking new. So you have to maintain two. So I think the easiest thing that we can do here is that don't assume that from one definition you can infer the other. Let's not assume this, because it's not always possible.
We have a question on the chat.
Oh
in
yeah,
the chat.
Todd.
So
So is Todd? Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
bye.
Now we can hear you. Yes.
Sorry, my background's a little messed up. My green screen's not in the right place, etc.
The background looks perfect.
It makes it eclectic. It makes it eclectic. It's a little bit mix of real and virtual. So I didn't want to interrupt because I'm not as deep to where your team is on Spec 3.0. But super interested, and I know that my work with the NATS community in Synadia. I mean, I am particularly, but the whole team constantly flipping back and forth in those sort of viewpoints around our request reply in NATS. And we have different names, but I think also I hear there is this challenge because always there's sort of three actors, generally, maybe not always, but generally we have the sort of broker actor, we have sort of the service requester actor, and we have the service responder actor. And so it does kind of resonate that in terms of a contract or an interface document, there really is sort of at least two independent documents. The relationship that the broker has with the service responder and the relationship that the service requester has with the broker in terms of what is being exposed. So that does make sense to me. And then of course, I think as was pointed out, there could be n number of adapters or different types of protocol exposures to a given
Correct.
service.
Exactly. Correct.
Yeah, and they can be quite different, as was pointed out, right? Yeah,
exactly. And you don't know how the topology is going to look like between the publisher and the subscriber. So so that's the thing. Like, we cannot assume that publisher and subscribers are always connected to the same broker, right? So subscriber might be connected to a different broker that is somehow federated with a second broker, which is where the publisher is publishing to, and they don't even have to talk the same protocol, like you said. So that's also a common case. Actually, 2 weeks ago, I had the pleasure to talk to Dominique Overmeyer from HiveMQ on the Thinking Out Loud, and he was actually explaining this to me that in IoT this is very common, that on the edge, on the factories, on the edge, they implement MQTT brokers, but these messages end up on their microservices architecture, which is usually using Kafka. So they have like a system they have a feature, which is their broker has a feature which is like they forward messages to a Kafka broker from the MQTT broker. So so what happens is that the subscriber here might be reading in Kafka, and the publisher might be publishing on a MQTT broker. So
absolutely. Like NAT server now has it can expose as MQTT to a certain set of connected clients. There's somewhat of a lightweight mapping to NAT subjects. Same with NAT server can present WebSockets as well as native NATS protocol. So far, there's pretty light abstractions into the sort of core NATS subject hierarchy, but all three are technically different in how you might expose that information as a contract or document to an implementer at the client side.
Agreed. So that is an assumption that we cannot make. So moving forward is yeah, maybe Sergio was right. Like from the client perspective, if you want to send a request, it's a send operation. You want to send a
Mhm.
message to an endpoint. But yeah, it will be cool if we could have semantics that this send operation is actually a request. And
I think
actually,
you guys are probably way in. Again, my apologies. I don't want to come in and say dumb things.
no problem.
Up to speed, but do we so much of this seems to be about roles and actors and then getting the right names and semantics that everyone feels comfortable with about those actor roles. So, I'm a service responder, but technically from the broker's perspective, I'm just another client. But I am a client of the broker that is taking on the role of the service or of the service responder in the interaction. Same way, if I'm a service client, I'm just another client to the broker's perspective, but I'm taking on the role of service requester. So
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
I'm probably
And the
just
thing is that
a core challenge.
up until now, we've been treating in broker-based architectures, we've been treating them, all of them, like provider and consumer, server and client, and something like that. And it's like, they're all clients.
They are,
the server is the broker.
Right, as you guys are talking about, we're talking about immediately. I guess I could just talk the most intimately about Nats. That client who is the service requester or service consumer in Nats, to get the asynchronous service reply, it's immediately a service as well, right? Because it's sitting there listening on a reply channel that it itself defined. So it's almost like as soon as the request goes out, technically the roles change. They flip, immediately flip for the reverse channel, right?
So yeah, anyway, this is just was just food for thought. Like, we don't have to include this in version 3.0, of course. This is something that we can be included in 3.1 maybe, or 3.2, or if at all, right? So, but this is, just wanted to mention that we had this chat today, which is related to 3.0 and the change of the verbs. So at least we covered with this this thing about having two async API documents, one for let's say one for the server and one for the client, or one for each client. We're covered. Like, we don't have to do these weird tricks anymore. Problem is that now responsibility is delegated to the user, that they will have to create two async API documents. But I'm confident that we will be able to provide some tools that will make the process easier, right? So things like from this async API document, please infer this other async API document. And for those who are doing the typical use case, like publisher is publishing to a broker and subscriber is subscribing directly to the same broker on the same topic. For those, it will be just a command, and they get it flipped. They get the verbs flipped, and that's it. That's something, and they will be asked about operation ID and descriptions and so on to check if it still makes sense. And that could work. Studio can take care of it. CLI can take care of this. So that could be provided. But yeah, at least we don't make this assumption on the spec, because then it becomes brittle. Right? So yeah.
would we foresee a way to, is there some kind of binding or information in both of these documents that could relate them to be able to tell a tool, a human or a robot, that this is actually two different perspectives of the same service interaction?
I think so. We had this conversation about including support for multiple applications in version 3 on the same file. So a single file will be able to define different applications. And we ditched it for version 3 because we have now not enough context.
Mhm.
We actually had a chat on Thinking Out Loud last week about it. Thing is that it could be a separate spec easily. Separate kind of document. Call it whatever you want, but a separate spec. So that is, you should be able to include maybe reference different async API documents and give them roles, for instance. And roles can be defined by you. Like this is a server, this is a client, this is, I don't know, this is a this is in charge of creating users. This one is in charge of doing whatever else. And you can define relationships between them. This is probably something to explore. But that's a separate thing. It's a separate effort, I would say. So yeah. Because otherwise we're polluting too much the spec, the core spec.
Mhm. And then I guess overall, with async API, is it trying to target both the sort of broker and brokerless kind of scenarios? Yeah, okay. So
yeah, it is.
We wouldn't always assume that there's a third actor in the middle of broker, and that's sort of the pivot
that's
point.
The problem. That's the problem. Like there might not be any broker in
It's
the
just a
middle,
peer
or
relationship, right?
Yeah, it can be point-to-point, pure point-to-point communication. So yeah, when we define servers inside async API, that's why I was suggesting that we use remotes and local servers. So when you're defining a server, you specify if for you the server is local, I mean you are the server, or is it a remote server like a broker, for instance, or another server and you're a client, and you're a client of the server. So yeah.
Well, there's plenty of cases where there's a broker, but that's sort of irrelevant because the broker is just routing traffic. It's not transforming or creating another type of interface at all. So it's just sort of invisible to the interaction, right? Like a little magic actor that you don't really need to consider, right? So yeah.
Yeah, thing is that we always saying broker, but it doesn't have to be broker. It can be any kind of messaging middleware, right? So if you have, what was the name of this? The transform messages, and TIBCO had one, I can't remember.
Oh, like BusinessWorks, the old TIBCO BW or
EMS, I think, enterprise message.
The EMS, the GMS broker.
Yeah, so you could actually configure transformations on the messages. Mm-hmm. So yeah, these things.
It's sort of some brokers tend to sort of cross over into integration adapter middleware.
Yes.
Real time.
So yeah, these things need to be also considered, that they may not be pure brokers, pure routers. There may be something else involved there. So, and this is something that we should consider because especially financial companies, finance companies like banks or insurance companies, they tend to use a lot of these systems. So yeah. And it's important. Even though I don't agree with using them in most cases, but it's not about me, it's about what it is, right?
It does change the relationships quite a bit, right? It's if your broker is actually doing a lot of transforms and it's essentially presenting then it's kind of irrelevant what the actual service provider is on the other side, because the client, the broker is the service now. It's a completely different interface. It has functional behavior, etc. Yeah.
So yeah, food for thought. Any other questions, topics you want to bring?
Is there, this is a little self-serving, I apologize for that, given my interest in the NAT side, but NATs for request reply is sort of completely dynamic on sort of the reply channel. So the requester basically just sends the reply subject that the service responder will use to asynchronously send the response.
Yes.
Are we, is the current level of Spec sort of allowing that dynamicism, or does it assume a statically created reply channel?
So far, not even statically. So so far, the current request reply suggesting is that we actually incorporate these things. So we should be able to tell that the channel where you should be responding, it's on whatever header of the message, or is specified on the body of the message, which is, I don't think it's typical. I think it's usually headers. So yeah, so it should be possible to do it. Like the reply, where are you replying? We don't know. It's a dynamic channel that is created specifically for this reply. And once the reply has been received, probably even the channel is destroyed. So yeah, so this is something that should be considered. But once we add support for request reply, that's why I was mentioning before that maybe, yeah, not for 3.0, but for 3.1 or something like that. If we add support for request and reply, we should consider these cases. So, yeah, all the cases actually.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot, and I know, just for NATs, there's sort of, it can get intricate, but here's my reply channel, and it's of one of three types. I expect a single message in reply. I expect n messages in reply. So it's like a reply stream.
Yes.
Or even I have a sense of chunked encoding. So there's sort of like, here's my reply, default is a single response, just sort of like request reply, like a HTTP case. But I might define that, no, it's actually, here's my request, and I might get a whole stream of messages in response over some period of time.
Yeah, so we should probably go for the common, for what they have in common with, across different messaging systems, and say, for instance, the reply will be sent to this channel, and then on the NATs binding, specify if it's going to be a single response or if it's going to be a stream or whatever other kind of responses that you can get there, right?
Yeah.
So, but only for NATs. So we keep it specific for NATs, right? And the core specs will just say like, hey, response is going there to whatever channel that we may or may not know in advance, and that's it. And then from there on is just a matter of Kafka supports this. I mean, Kafka actually no, but AMQP supports that kind of actually ActiveMQ, RabbitMQ, and so on. They all support these things.
Yep.
NATs as well, but probably in a different way, or different set of features. So yeah, these things I think should belong to the bindings.
Yeah. I'm sure. Yeah, NATs is probably not unique there. And then is there a point of view on whether how to express maybe in an async API interface? Is there a way to express, is this, I'm making a service request and it will be directed to basically one service responder will get it, versus more of a scatter gather type request reply scenario. 10 service instances could get it and I'll send responses back to the client. It's a pattern.
I have no idea about this part, to be honest. I will have to read more. If you have some resources to read, I will be glad. About
Yeah.
this
And apologize. I want to spend some more time so I can speak intelligently. I know you guys are working on this for.
No problem. No, but if you have some resources like to share, like how Nats performs its things, that would be cool.
Happy to provide that. Yeah, maybe it's a window on some generalizations for the spec. Yeah. Cool,
folks. Maciek is watching TV now.
No, I'm making the reels.
We are working on the
coding.
backgrounds.
Yeah, the server API and
Famous.
Studio.
So that's why I'm seeing a lot of notifications on my Slack right now. Like you're making releases
Only the
as we
reels.
speak. Okay. Cool, folks. So I think that's a wrap. We have another meeting in 2 weeks, same time. And yeah, don't wait for the meeting if you have any suggestions, of course. Let me check. I should have been checking the chat on the live stream. But yeah, luckily or not, we don't have any messages there. So, so yeah. See you in 2 weeks, folks.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.